Get your book back? I gave it to Steve White to give to you. You gave it to my wife? Steve White. Oh, he stopped in one day. No big deal. I found it on my computer anyway, so I got all the information. I could have given you that, but it's been better. And I got several invitations.
All right, it's 6:30. Welcome everybody. We appreciate the public attending our meetings, and during the public hearing process, we will be asking for public input, and please feel welcome to do so. We appreciate it. I will call to order 6:30 and call roll. Justin.
Present.
Mary. Here. Frank.
Yep.
Jeremy.
Here.
Myers here. Ray. Keith.
Yes.
Jerry.
Yes.
Doug.
Yes.
Having a quorum, and we will proceed. Motion to adopt the agenda, unless there are additions or deletions, so say.
Add to other business, discussion and recommendation on zoning classification of cemeteries.
Zoning recommendations for cemetery. All right, we'll add that under other business. Okay. Any other additions? Okay. Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Okay. All right. Motion to approve the minutes of August 13th, 2012. May I have a motion?
So, Madam Chair,
Yes.
call on the, to adopt the agenda, just to call all in favor for or against.
Oh, duh. Keep me honest, Jerry.
You have a
Okay,
motion- you have a
all in
motion.
favor to adopt the agenda as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Like I said, keep me honest. All right, so we'll be on minutes now. Approval to approve the minutes of August 13th.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Keith? A second?
I'll second.
Justin? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No, I didn't get the resolution.
Keith and Justin. Okay. All right. We are going to move into our public hearings. I do want to mention to the audience, those that have agendas, you'll notice that we have 11 items to hear for public hearings. And we want everybody's input, but I would like to ask that you limit your comments to 2 minutes. Jerry, and if you have the same opinion of someone previously, we still would like you to come up, give your name and address, and then just say, I concur with the other lady or gentleman, so that we can move this along and not have you here until midnight. As we said, the purpose of this public hearing is to share information and get your input. First, we will open the public hearing at 6:34 for item 1. And that is rezoning a parcel of property currently zoned planned unit development - Mississippi Headwaters Corridor PUD-M a planned unit development and adding, and here's the important part, folks, the underlying zoning of a 1- and 2-family residential district. And this is at 18777 Riverwood Drive. Currently, its current use is a cemetery. And Jerry, provide proof of the affidavit of publication.
Yes, Doug has
Doug?
the affidavit.
Whoever.
Yes, it was published in August 26th paper and September 2nd, 2012.
Okay.
And also we have the
And-
affidavit that mailing notices to everybody within 300 feet.
350 feet, okay. Now, we'll turn it over to city staff, and then you determine who is going to provide the report, or parts of the report. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are quite a few public hearings tonight, and a little bit of background information first. On this map, and the same that on the easels, it's a little bit easier to see on this map, all of the purple, I don't know, that's not really purple, what would that be?
Magenta.
There's a number of parcels of property within the city that over the years were zoned PUD, and in the last few years we have some that were zoned PUD R1. There's one up here in the Sunrise Edition. There's also one out by Walmart. Walmart's over here, a PUD R1. And south of the golf course, the South Oaks Edition is a PUD R1. As a PUD R1, the underlying zoning is residential, 1- and 2-family. These other districts or areas that were zoned PUD do not have an underlying zoning. And over the years, staff has changed, attorneys have changed. For whatever reason, we don't have underlying zoning on a lot of other parcels that we need an underlying zoning. So none of these public hearings were initiated by any of these property owners. They were all initiated by the city of Little Falls, so that we can create an underlying zoning to help correct these PUDs and provide an underlying zoning. So the very first one is the cemetery. And with the cemetery, as Jeannie was talking about, we do have some other cemeteries in the city. Calvary is a B3. Oakland is a PUD, and now we have Holy Family as a PUD/M up here. So there's a couple ways we could look at this. We could say that they're an open, semi-public, and actually create another zoning district for it. That's a possibility with not only cemeteries, but other vacant land. A number of these parcels are just vacant. A lot of it is just vacant land. And you could put an underlying zoning as a semi-public or even agricultural open space, but we don't have that in our code book right now. But that could be a recommendation that would come from the Planning Commission. Say let's make it different than an R1 or an R2 or an R3. Those are our residential districts. Or we can make it different from a B1, a B2, or a B3. Those are the business districts. We also have I1 and I2, industrial districts within the city. But we don't have an open space in our code book anywhere. So maybe one recommendation might be that we create an open space definition and go with that accordingly. You can have churches, cemeteries, other public facilities, state facilities, county facilities, city facilities, lift stations, on any zone in the city by conditional use. That is in our code book. But in this particular case, we don't have any of that are just PUD. So we're trying to correct something that was done before. And even though the public hearing is calling for, and the first one is the cemetery, so right here is Belle Prairie Church, our Holy Family. The cemetery sits right in here. Our first thought as the Planning Commission last month was to make it an R2, because the church is an R2, which is allowed by conditional use, which is okay. But as a cemetery, you normally don't have cemeteries in residential districts. It would be better to be in a business district. I've changed my opinion from a month ago. You're next to a main road. Same thing with the tech center. A B3 is a non-central business district, and cemeteries are allowed in business districts. Typically, they're not in residential districts. Can it be? Yes, there's always exceptions to the rule. But as we gain public input tonight on this, one of the recommendations might be that a month from now we go through this again and rezone it as a B3, which would fit a little bit better into the definitions that most communities use. So I'm trying to give you a little bit bigger picture of all of these PUDs that we're going to go through tonight. We'll start with the cemetery and ask for your input. Then we'll have another public hearing for Holy Angels Riverwood Pines, and we'll have another public hearing for the tech center. 3 different owners, 3 different parcels of property. So, any questions on the explanation so far? It's going to stay a cemetery. We're not proposing to change it different from a cemetery. It's just that we don't have any underlying. It's not labeled correctly.
Isn't there one for the vacant land too, that's there?
We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
There's another, I just see you.
There's another piece of vacant land right next to it. It actually lies, it's hard to see on here, but there's a little strip in here between the church and the Riverwood Pines that you're talking about, Jeremy. So, open it up for questions and comments.
Seeing as how the city is the applicant and the staff, we're combining those and we'll move right along. I'm going to open up the hearing to receive public comments. Anybody who wishes to speak, would you please come up and give your name and address? And we are not taking them in any order, whether you're opposed or for, but if you would state that, we'd appreciate it. Anybody wish to comment? Anybody wish to comment? Anybody wish to comment?
Sorry, I have to make one more comment.
Yes.
And I apologize to the people of Holy Family Congregation. Staff did go meet with all the property owners before it came out into the paper, except for the tech center and Belle Prairie Holy Family Congregation there. So I apologize that I didn't get out to you before the public hearing came in the paper. Did talk to Father Joe after that and explained the idea to him about going with a B3, which I think would make more sense in that area. So sorry.
My name is Dave Brusk, and I live at 19921 Haven Road, and we are members of Holy Family Church. And I think what our church members, the ones I've talked to, are more concerned with is having that rezone back to residential. We'd sooner see it go to a commercial. The ones I've talked to, I'm not speaking for everyone, and I myself would too. And I think our biggest worry is that we don't want homes built in, and we don't want to get rid of the land that's by the river and stuff like happened a few years ago where they were trying to sell off that land. And a lot of people were totally against that. And I think that's what got everybody kind of shook up about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. Thank you. Did you get the
Yep.
address?
Yep. 19921 Haven Road.
Yeah. Thank you again. Anybody else wish to speak?
My name is Dwight Raleigh, and 2687 175th Avenue, Fort Brooklyn.
Would you repeat that, please?
2687 175th Avenue, Fort Brooklyn. My voice is soft, I don't know.
Oh,
Doesn't
okay.
very well. Never will. That's the way I am.
That's all right.
Also a member of Holy Family Church and member of the Parish Council. I've talked to a lot of people also in the parish and others about the rezoning. The fact that it wasn't communicated up front caused us in the Parish Council a lot of discomfort because we got many calls. So, R2 doesn't seem a good fit for a cemetery, that's been my concern all along. B3 sounds a lot better. To have a special classification for cemeteries or for church properties makes sense to me also. My preference would be a B3 over the R2, even though I know that the church proper, the parish house is R2. So I just want to make it clear that from my perspective, B3 makes a lot more sense, but it's still a cemetery and church property, so.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Not putting words in your mouths, but just to summarize what you said, you're not against making a proper zoning classification, but you prefer the B3 or you prefer not an R2. Okay, thank you. Just to make sure. Okay, anybody else?
I'm Robin Hensel, 807 First Street Southeast. I just want to clarify to everyone here that the reason why the PUD's zones are being rezoned right now, and unless someone here on the panel can correct this, is because of the sign ordinance. They can't put forth any signs, they can't give out any signs in these areas because they don't have that underlying definition. And my question is to the members here, how come this wasn't done a long time ago? Why now? And when I went on the computer and researched sign ordinances, in almost every state that I looked up, the rezoning was done before the sign ordinance was put forth. I just wanted to make that known to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you for or against the proposal, Robin?
I'm neither. I mean, I don't live in any of these areas, so.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to see where we're, okay. Anybody else? Anybody else? Going 3 times. Okay, before I close the public hearing, I'll ask the staff, did you receive any correspondence for or against the rezone?
I have received numerous phone calls but no written correspondence, so.
Okay.
Any written
Okay.
correspondence?
Okay, so we'll enter that into the record. Okay. Public hearing is closed at 6:47. I need glasses. Okay. Under consideration, I'd like to endorse what Jerry is saying, and for the purposes of moving this forward, I would recommend that we do not recommend the R2 zoning classification and ask that the staff republish,
Okay.
because we'll need to public notice, and recommend the R3. We do have one,
B3.
I mean, a B3. We have one cemetery B3 already. A little more consistency, and it is appropriate when you look at other zoning ordinances in other communities. That's, if somebody would like to make a motion, then we can discuss that. And it has to be in the affirmative, or should be.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we would you say re-advertise it or
No, you just instruct staff, we just vote on this, either yes or
Yeah,
no.
vote this up or down, and then
Okay, so vote for the B3.
No, R2.
for the R2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Make the
And
motion in the
affirmative.
positive as an R2 and vote it down.
And then vote
Okay,
down.
so I'll make a motion that it be
That we recommend.
recommended R2. Okay,
We deny R2 recommendation.
recommendation that we deny R2. Okay.
Okay.
Or
Second.
is- or-
No, they would recommend R2.
R2, and then we have
Oh,
to vote.
that's
it
right.
we vote
And
no.
then we vote no.
Okay.
Yeah, recommend.
Okay, so recommend R2
Got it.
zoning.
And second,
Second.
Jeremy, okay. All right, discussion.
So this means vote no.
Yes.
So vote no if you want B3.
Yes.
Correct.
No discussion
Correct.
pertaining to this.
Any discussion?
Okay.
I have no discussion pertaining to this, just a remark that this isn't coming about just because of the sign ordinance. We were working on spot zoning for last 2-3 years. You could check our last past planning and zoning minutes, and we're trying to deal with this a long time ago.
Yes, yes, we were trying to correct classifications and at the minimum before starting to overhaul in our ordinance. Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye. To the motion. Aye, to the motion. All those opposed?
Aye.
All right. Then, our recommendation then, Jerry, would be then, we'll re-advertise it and suggest a B3.
And then we would have another public hearing next month.
After 20, after 10 days. Yeah,
Yes.
next month we'll have.
You will not only have a public hearing on the cemetery and the tech center, or any others that we might change tonight, but we didn't do the whole town tonight, because that's 11 public hearings already, so next month we're going to do more of the same on the other parcels that are just simply PUDs.
Okay. All right, so that is request number 1.
Madam Chair, why don't you have a motion to recommend to
Shall
staff
we do
to
that?
publish, republish the zoning as with underlying zoning of a B3, so they know and it's in our minutes.
Okay, do you want a motion to that?
So
Okay, all right, second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, okay.
Frank seconded.
Frank second.
Yep, Frank seconded. Okay. Item 2, we'll open the public hearing, and that's to rezone a parcel of property currently zoned plan unit development Mississippi Headwaters Corridor, PUD-M, to planned unit development, PUD, and adding underlying zoning of 1 and 2 family residential district R2 to vacant land whose address is 18777 Riverwood Drive. Staff report.
So that is, there's a little strip of land between, it's right in here, between Riverwood Pines Apartments, our Holy Angels apartments, and the existing church property. There's a little sliver of land in here that is legally in this PUD description. So it's vacant, except for a few church items I think you have on there.
Any buildings? Or is
No,
it just-
no buildings.
Okay.
But it's a long narrow strip. You can see it on your maps easier.
Yeah. Okay, and the recommendations are in R2 PUD. Okay. Any other report on that?
Yes, one thing I forgot to mention last time too, sorry people. The M is Mississippi Headwaters. And again, when this was done years ago, with the Belle Prairie annexation issue, that's when that happened. But since then, and we've checked with the county, we've checked with the Mississippi Headwaters Corridor, if you're more than 500 feet away, you don't need to be labeled an M. And so part of the public hearing was to take the M off.
Yeah.
So you're just going to be you're going to be a PUD with the underlying zoning of a B3. Get rid of the M. Why go through the Mississippi Headwaters if you don't have to? And you're more than 500 feet away, and you're on the other side of the road. So again,
It doesn't apply.
it doesn't apply. That's what we're saying. Because you're more than 500 feet away from the Mississippi River, so we don't need an M designation on any of those parcels.
Thanks for clarifying that, because I think we've got about 5
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right, any questions from the planning commission on the proposal? If not, then we will receive comments from the public. Who would wish to speak on the proposed change to the zoning? To make the underlying zoning district R2.
Dwayne Wally again, tonight, 268-78-178 I just have one question. Is this small strip of land even big enough to put a house on? Really?
No.
So if it's zoned R2, it becomes, you can't do anything with it.
We can't do anything with it as far as a structure is concerned.
Yeah,
You know, gardens, other amenities certainly are allowed.
but you couldn't, yeah.
You could not put a
It's not big
structure.
enough for housing.
You could legally combine it with your church property or something else and then put it onto one parcel, do one legal description. If you were to consider putting an accessory structure out there, you could go within 5 feet of your lot line. But that's allowed in the B1, B2, R1, R2 as accessory structures. But as it sits right now, it's long and narrow and it's unbuildable for a primary structure.
Okay.
Anybody else wish to speak? Anybody else wish to speak? So yours was just a clarification of it, not in opposition or for it?
Well, no matter what you put, it doesn't make any difference.
Accessories, I mean, there could, accessory uses might be different, but yeah, okay. Anybody else? Third time, anybody else wish to comment?
There is something that everyone here should be aware of that no one up here has told you. And it does have a great deal to do with the sign ordinance because at the working sessions, this was talked about a lot. That one of the reasons to rezone these was because signs cannot be enforced or given out in these areas legally right now. Actually, technically, every one of these PV zones is illegal. That's another thing everyone here needs to understand. They're not telling you up here. But depending on how this is zoned, for instance, if your church property is R2, you can only get a small amount of signage. If it's a B3, you get a much bigger amount of signage. So if your church ever wanted to use that empty space for a bigger sign to invite or welcome people to your congregation, the smarter way to rezone it then would be to a B district, because you get much more signage. I just wanted everybody to be aware of that.
Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing at 6:58. Jerry and I were talking about this also. A PUD describes a development. You know, it can be a subdivision, it can be a project where you've got buildings that you want to maybe have closer to the property line, maybe more dense development, but it designates a development. And when we were talking about this particular piece, it's vacant. And if we label it a PUD, in this case, what we're seeing is that there's development on here, and it meets different standards than just what the underlying zoning ordinance would require. I guess my recommendation to the Planning Commission, as with item 1, is that we deny the recommendation and then ask that staff kind of repeat the process we did with the first, and ask that it be republished just
As a
plain
B3?
as, or I think the R2 is what you had recommended.
No, this one was published as an R2. So-
Right, but at the PUD. It doesn't need a PUD,
Yeah, but-
Jerry.
It doesn't need a PUD,
No.
but then you'd have to call for a different public hearing and just zone it R2 and take the PUD,
Correct.
plan unit development off is what you're suggesting.
That, right.
That's an
We
option.
can do that right now, can't we?
You could. No, take it back. Because it was published as an R2 PUD
yeah.
and not as a rezone to
Just a
strictly
plain
R2.
Yeah,
But again, the comments would be, this strip of land is adjacent to the church. It's right, alongside the road there, so if you want
might the
to,
B3 be more
if you want to have
appropriate?
it as a B3, now is the time to make it a B3,
Yeah, what do you
if you
think?
want to consider that.
I would leave it to PUD. R2, they can do nothing with it anyhow.
Yeah, but a PUD is a label. It isn't a development. A PUD means this has a development on it. It doesn't, it's vacant.
Future development. Could
No. If there is gonna be a future development, they can come in and they can ask for a PUD because you fall under an entire different, set of standards. It's just vacant land. Why slap requirements on this first strip of land?
Is it a separate parcel? Tax purpose wise? It is.
There's no taxes paid on it, but it's listed as a separate parcel.
And it looks like there's two different pieces
Yep.
but that's one parcel?
I'm looking at the guys that did it.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was kind of split with that plat that went in there.
With the road there? Kind of thing, yeah. I guess I'm just saying is that if we're going to make corrections, we should make them correctly. And Jerry and I didn't have a chance to discuss this until just recently, that if it doesn't have a development on it, it shouldn't make it sound like it does.
So then why are we doing a
Just-
PUD on the cemetery?
Because there is a land use there. The
So
cemetery
there's
has a
development?
land use there. It's developed.
As a cemetery,
already,
but they ain't
yeah.
put no,
Yeah, it's developed as a cemetery. It's fallen under different standards. There is development on it. I mean,
well,
we
here's
would
the
not
development on
graze
here
our
too, they got
development.
decorations on it, so it's being developed.
Anyway, that's just a recommendation from the chair.
Is a PUD considered a temporary situation then because it's under development?
Now, a PUD is like, if you came in, you said, I want a, Rosedale subdivision on this 40 acres out here. It's like that, except it has additional layers of requirements or flexibility where you might want more green space. So you're saying, well, if you put the houses a little closer together, you've got all this stuff. So, I mean, it provides a little different, but it is a development. And it can be a subdivision, it can be a special project, but it is a development.
Are there acreage requirements or anything like that for a PUD?
Not necessarily. It can be a small parcel, it can be a 300-acre parcel. It just depends on if you want that flexibility, then you fall under this different category of requirements.
Again, Madam Chair, in doing limited research, a number of communities will protect natural amenities, a swamp, a woods, a part of a lake, and you'll allow them to have, instead of a 66-foot right-of-way for the road, they'll go to a 50-foot, but in exchange for that, they gotta go protect those trees and make a green space or a bigger green space. So it's kind of a negotiating tool that would allow you to fit the same number of houses onto that 40 acres, but you want to save this woods, or you want to save that wetland, or you want to save some natural amenities, so you're going to allow smaller lots
Some
or narrower
flexibility,
roads in exchange for a bigger green space.
Yeah.
So a number of communities have that, but it's with the intent of saving or making your community a better place by bending the rules a little bit. Your setbacks might be slightly less, or your right-of-way would be slightly narrower. But in exchange for that, you save a grove of trees or a wetland or something.
It allows flexibility to take, the natural environment into consideration. What would anybody want to entertain a motion on this so that we can
I'll
then
make a
discuss
motion
it?
that we go for an R2.
Second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Discussion?
I have a couple questions from Jerry. Is this an illegal thing we have there right now?
No, I don't think the right word is illegal. Years ago when we did this, we were under the impression that you could do this. I mean, that it was correct. Administration, attorneys at that point said, yep, we're gonna do it like this. We've learned over the years, or whatever, it certainly wasn't made to create an illegal situation. It's just that how they thought of it, how they approached the PUD was different than what we're doing now. So, but your motion is then to approve it as a PUD R2 or just an R2?
No, R2 PUD
R-
and then
turn it down. If you want to get rid of the PUD
I mean,
And just have the R2.
and just have R2? Okay.
Any other
Just want to make sure our
discussion?
motions are
Yeah.
correct.
Any other
Understood.
discussion?
well, I'd just like to say as a member of the council, I never heard once that we don't want to tell the public about these things.
No, we've talked about it at all of our meetings.
So I just heard it a couple times tonight.
Yep.
Anyway, just to make it clear, we're not trying to hide anything.
That's right.
We've been working on these sign ordinances for a long time, way before even recent events. And it's been going on since I've been on the council, 4 years, trying to get this all sorted out. And that's why we've been having these meetings, so we can get everything in order.
Yeah.
And it's an ongoing process.
It
It's
is.
ongoing.
Probably never been done.
Yeah, but we're working hard at it. Okay, any other discussion? Okay.
Can you read the
The
The motion,
motion
please.
is to recommend approval of rezoning from an Mississippi Waters, PUDM to a PUD, R2 PUD.
So it's the church? The church is PUD,
No, the church itself
it's just R2?
is R2M, and that is within the Mississippi headwaters, and it came in as an R2 at the time of the Valparaiso annexation.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, all those in favor of approving the R2 PUD? All those opposed?
Aye.
All right, then I will have a motion to recommend that staff publish this, and we'll hold another public hearing
I'll make that motion
to recommend just
for B3.
from a PUDM to a, yeah, R2, is that right?
I mean R2.
R2, thank you.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, I'm sorry.
I have a question.
Yes. Speak up.
My name is
Thank
Lori
you.
Casella. I live at 18656 175th Avenue, Little Falls, and I'm also a member of the Parish Council on Holy Family Church. So my question is, that strip of property, Jerry, it's between the church and the apartment complex. Is it also on the north side of Riverwood that there's a strip of property that goes
Yep.
all the way
Yep,
across?
there's a little,
correct?
it goes a little bit across on the north side of,
Riverwood.
where Riverwood turns, it goes back
It goes
to,
on the north
the
side
highway.
and
Yep.
then is that other little strip. Is it possible to have two separate zonings? What's on the west side of Riverwood or that strip along the church to be a residential, and then what's on the other side to be a business? Even though it's the same parcel, can you zone it? Can you split that zone? We have a parish council meeting
yeah.
tomorrow night, and
Okay.
so that this, could be a discussion.
Uh-huh.
To me, it doesn't make sense to zone that strip business if both sides of it are residential. So depending on what happens to the apartment building, if that's zoned residential and the church is zoned residential, it would make sense to me to have that piece zoned residential. But yet the piece that's on the north side of Riverwood would make more sense to make that business because then everything on this side is business. So
Lori, even though it is one parcel, a number of communities do this. If, let's say, your north half is butting up against, one zone, the south half is butting up against the other, and it would make sense.
There's a street there to split
You can
it, so.
zone it. Well,
There's
it's
a
really
plat there,
screwy.
there's a plat there to divide it now, so you could say everything east of the plat is one side, B3,
We could- if we
everything
could-
west of the plat
yeah.
is an R2, which is next to the church.
If we could make that legal description to delineate that part of the parcel,
Does that
I
make sense?
I mean, it's been done, and there definitely is kind of a demarcation line there.
So if we have a church council meeting tomorrow night, we could actually then petition to have that zone.
Before it's public notice, if you could.
Right, and we have the
Yes.
meeting tomorrow, so if we could discuss this at church council tomorrow, then we could, tell them about this meeting and then come back and we could actually petition.
You could be the
zoning
petitioner.
The way we would like to see it, rather
Yeah,
than,
you could be the petitioner.
than have that. So-
And that would override our recommendation, because
You
you're
could
the
amend your
petitioner.
recommendation right now, you haven't
Or
voted on
we
it
could
yet.
recommend and just say the east side as
Or
shown.
as request.
We could just not make a recommendation, let them petition it.
That'd probably be better.
We could continue the public hearing.
We already closed it.
We did close it, that's right, we closed it. If it does,
Now I see why this takes
yeah,
long.
if it does make sense. One of the things that we can do is we can go ahead with what we had suggested. The church council could have the meeting if that's what they would prefer. They could become petitioners and then petition this, and that's what we'd be,
It's already muddied the water.
that's what we'd be voting
What-
on.
what the hearing
Or-
will be on next
You
time.
just make a
Or
motion
we
to.
could just make a motion.
To accept the recommendation of the
To
church
accept
council
the
and publish it
recommendation.
accordingly.
Okay. So we want to amend, can there be
I
a
have to
friendly
amend
amendment?
Yeah,
Yes.
you made it.
You made it.
Okay.
As,
Amend,
and maybe
change.
as presented to, on the map. So we know.
As
what they-
presented on the map, and I'll make an amendment that would go according to the recommendation of the church meeting, following the church meeting tomorrow, what they'd like to see it zoned. Do I have to add anything?
I think we have to say what the preferred zoning would be, because that's what's
Recommendation
good.
with the preferred zoning of B3
On
next
the
to the
east.
freeway,
Mhm.
east of the
Okay,
Holy Angels, Riverwood Pines, and what's west?
And then R2.
And R2.
ours
is
is
the
west,
national
R2,
church.
so it complies with neighboring,
Adjoining.
okay,
Yeah, properties.
okay.
Okay, Jerry, clean that mess. Okay.
I'll second that.
All right,
Whatever that-
all in favor?
See this area, I want to go to.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, opposed? Okay. Thank you, Lori. All right, so number 3,
So we're here to midnight, so we're
we'll
going.
open 7:13. Number 3, request to rezone a parcel of property currently zoned PUD M to a PUD and add the underlying R2 residential zoning district to 18795 Riverwood Drive, and that's the Riverwood Pines apartment. Staff.
Again, at our planning commission meeting last month, we talked about the rezoning and whether it's a typo or not. Our minutes reflected as an R2, and the use is a B3, excuse me, R3.
And it was supposed to have been
And it
R3.
should have been an R3
Yeah.
posting. So
So that's a correction.
that's a correction we have to
That's
make.
okay.
Again, staff did go talk to the people, the Riverwood Pines, and explain the situation to them. So they realized that we're gonna
That it was the
vote this
R3.
down as an R2 with the idea of doing an
R3.
R3.
Okay. All right, anything else?
What's correct?
It was mistakenly, it was supposed to be an R3.
Should have been an R3, but our minutes were showed it as an R2.
So that's a clerical error. But it'll need to be,
Republished.
yeah. Any other comment? Okay. Have you been getting any
No,
correspondence
written.
from any of these?
No.
Written? Okay.
No written
All right.
correspondence on these last two.
Okay. We will take comments from the public. Any comments? Any comments? Going 3. Okay, we will close the public hearing. And the commission understands this really was a clerical error and that the R3 would have been the appropriate zoning because it is a 24 unit and that would not have been allowed in an R2 anyway. We don't want to make it non-conforming in these poor people. So would we go through this the same? Make a recommendation.
I'll make a recommendation for R2.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Second? Jeremy? Okay, vote. Okay, discussion?
Staff considered changing it in the paper, but we would have went against your minutes, so we just published it, and realizing that we're gonna have to republish it.
Well, you know, when you squiggle that pen, it looks like a
That's okay.
2 instead of 3. Sorry about that, Jeremy.
No, it's-
Okay, all in favor? All right, died for lack of majority. All right, so then I'll
We need to ask
take
opposed.
I'll oppose. Aye. I'm trying to rush, Jeremy, so you can go to your date. I'm sorry. Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to republish and recommend R3. Anybody would like to
So
do that?
moved.
I'll second.
Okay. Jeremy and Keith.
And
All
it'll
in
be
favor?
an R3, a PUD, the M will stay off of it also. It will not be in the
Correct.
Mississippi headwaters.
Right, it's just the underlying
It's just the
zoning,
underlying.
right. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, all right. That was number 3. Okay. Now, number 4, we will open the public hearing at 7:17. And this is to rezone a parcel from a PUD M to a PUD with an underlying zoning classification of a B3 at 18801 Riverwood Drive. And that location, that's the location of Central Minnesota Tech, right? Okay. Jerry?
Again, this would fit in as a B3. It's along the freeway and would recommend approval. Also taking it out of the Mississippi headwaters.
Because it isn't in that.
Because it's greater than 500 feet away from the Mississippi River and
You know,
doesn't-
that's a good correction all by itself, because there are so many other restrictions.
This will be the first one I think we got right.
And just to clarify, the reason it is a PUD is because there are 2 buildings on this, so
Yeah.
it is 2 primary uses, so it went with the PUD. Any other, did you get any comments or correspondence?
No written comments, but we need public.
Okay, public input. Anybody wish to comment?
Yes, I would.
Hey, all right. Do you have a soft voice too?
No, I don't. Madam Chair, my name is Darrell Welly, and I live at 25866 165th Avenue, Fort Ripley. I'm a member of Holy Family Parish, and I'm also here to represent Central Minnesota Tech, together encountering Price. We have reviewed this planned unit development change. We agree with dropping the Mississippi Headwaters jurisdiction and changing the classification to B3, and we are all.
Very good. All right. Anybody else wish to comment? Anybody else wish to comment? Going 3 times. All right, we will close the public hearing at 7:19.
I'll make
I'll
a
entertain a
motion.
motion.
I'll make a motion that we change it to PUD with underlying D3.
Second.
Is it PUD?
Yes, yes,
Thank you.
right. And it's removing the N.
Yep.
As recommended. All right. And who seconded?
Justin.
Justin. Okay, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ta-da.
Oh, we're on a roll.
Hey, hey, hey. Well, sometimes we get it, we have to get in the roll. Okay. Number 5, we will open the public hearing at 7:20. And this is to rezone property by adding an underlying zoning of R3, which is multiple family residential district, to the existing PUD zoning at 800 Anne Marie Circle, which is the Courtyard Senior Housing. Staff.
Again, just for the public that are here, now we're down in southeast Little Falls. It's actually where the old fairgrounds used to be. And when the old fairgrounds was developed by the Roaches, part of it was zone R3, but part of it was zoned strictly PUD. And it should have been a PUD with an underlying zoning of an R3, which would fit its current use. So that's where we're at. We're right here in southeast Little Falls, and contact has been made with the owners. We would recommend going with that PUD R3.
Okay. And Jerry, just as a clarification, the reason that it's PUD is that there were little flexibilities and
Yep.
variations in
Yes.
their standards and the way they built. Okay. All right. Comments from the public? Any comments? Any comments about the recommendation?
My name is Dewey Force, and I live at 712 Fifth Street Southeast. In looking at the map, it appears as though my property would probably be the one that would face most of this PUD. I just want to say that one part of it is zone R3 now. And to be consistent with the rest of the block, I would highly encourage you to continue zoning at R3. It's not totally inconsistent from my property across the street. The present owner has been a good neighbor for the past 20 years. I worked with him when he built it because I was newly in retirement, had nothing else to do. So I watched that building go up, and he was definitely a good
But
neighbor.
to supervise.
He was definitely a good neighbor, so I would encourage that you
So you're in favor?
zone this as R3.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anybody else wish to comment? Anybody else? Any Bryce? Anybody else? We will close the public hearing. And I do want to say, and we should have said right from the start, that the staff has put hundreds of hours in researching back files, old zoning maps, just to see what the zoning may have been at one time, plus looking at the surrounding area to try to be compatible in its zoning classifications, as well as comporting with the city's comp plan for its current and future use. Okay. Entertain a motion.
Make a motion that it be zoned, it's a PUD with underlying R3.
Second? Second.
Seconded by Frank.
Frank? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Got another one right, didn't we, Jerry? You did a lot of work in here. Okay, item 6. We'll open the public hearing at 7:24. And this is to rezone property by adding an underlying zoning classification of multiple family residential, R3, to the existing PUD zoning at 1104 Fifth Avenue Southeast, which Highland Court Townhomes of Little Falls is located.
Okay.
Staff?
Very, very similar to the one we just did a few minutes ago. Now we're over on this little triangular piece. So the high school is sitting over here. That is where the apartments are existing right now. It's used as apartments. It should be an R3 underlying zoning. There does happen to be R2 on each side, but as that use, it has to stay as an underlying zoning of an R3. So very similar to what's over by the old fairgrounds, but we're in that 1104 Fifth Avenue. So.
And appropriate for the use.
For that use, correct.
And just as a clarification, Jerry, the PUD, because you had some flexibility in the arrangement of the configuration of the.
I remember being at that public hearing, and one thing that they did do is they put the garages next to the freeway for the sound, and then they drained it. They had to do a little stormwater basin. It was all part of the plan,
Yeah.
but again, to make it fit into the parcel.
Yeah. Because the geographic location too. Okay, so the PUD is appropriate. All right. I'll entertain a motion.
Discussion.
Oh, we're on the public hearing. Oh, sorry. Man, I'm trying to get this guy with his date. Sorry. Sorry. Hearing no other comments? Are we hearing comments?
Public input.
Yep, all right. Comments on the proposal?
My name is Linda Burgraff, and I live at 12271 190th Avenue. My mother lives at 1032 Fifth Avenue Southeast, and it works. They did a fantastic job there, so I think it should be the R3.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments?
Todd Stenberg, I live at 1207 Southeast. I live right across the street from that. It's like a garden area. I was just wondering if that's big enough to put any more apartments in that area, or is that?
As of today, they would have to come in and actually try to amend their subdivision, their project, and we have not received anything like that.
Well, I agree.
They needed that storm retention pond.
It's a beautiful decorated. They've got a great looking in there, and the kids play in there. They've got all the trees. So I was worried about maybe down the road they'd be adding onto that. So I was concerned about that. But you're trying to make an emotion, making an R3
to be compatible with the surrounding area and its use, because it would fit. If we zoned it something else, we might make it, a non-conforming use. So.
All right. Well, I have.
Okay. Your name again? I didn't.
Todd Stenberg. Todd Stenberg.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments? Any other?
Just a comment. Yes. I don't think you can put any more apartments on there.
Right, that's what I was worried about.
But just like Jeannie said, they'd have to go through their public hearing process, and it'd have to be opened up to the public again if they were going to change it.
Right.
But they haven't made any comment or any request to do that. Yeah. And the way the parcel is developed right now, I don't think you could put any more apartments on there.
That's what I was worried about. All right, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Jerry. Any other comments? Last comment. Okay, we will close the public hearing at 7:28. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
And that is to, recommend an R3 PUD.
Yep.
Actually, should be R3 PUD. Okay. Any discussion?
No written comments?
No written comments? Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now we're on item 7. We'll open the public hearing at 7:29. And this is to rezone parcel property by adding the underlying zoning of heavy industrial district, which is I2, to the existing PUD zoning at 1910 Haven Road, or iStar Minnesota LLC. Staff?
Thank you. Now we're back up in northeast Little Falls. In doing our research, when iStar is IWCO, Instant Web Company, just north of us a little bit. They actually sit right in here, and they purchased these lots right here in the corner. And this map is wrong. When we were doing the research for this other one, we found that this PUD is still a PUD, and when this was purchased, this was not included in the rezoning of this. So officially, it's still a PUD. It's that little corner, and it's a holding pond. It's a stormwater holding pond for the Instant Web Company for IWCO. So it needs to be an I2 to match what they've got, and it will go from a PUD to a PUD with an I2 underlying zoning, I2 PUD.
So by connecting that already is a PUD?
Correct. This is a PUD.
iStar
This
is
little
a
corner
PUD.
here is a
So-
PUD.
So it's make it consistent,
Yep.
really to correct this, okay.
Well, the rest of
Any
the properties
comments?
That has to remain a wetland, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Jeremy had a question too.
So the part that they're building is on now, that's not PUD, that's
No.
just I2.
Correct. Their building and the majority of their parking lot is strictly on an I2. Yep.
Do we need to keep a PUD?
Yeah, the PUD,
Because it'll
I2
be
PUD.
joined with
Okay.
an existing PUD. So it's really correcting the zoning map, basically. Okay, and any kind of written comments or anything, Jerry?
No.
Okay. All right.
Public,
Yeah,
okay.
comments from the public? All right, any comments? Any comments?
Staff did go and talk to the supervisors here, and the actual notice went down to the Twin Cities area. I don't have it
So
right
they
in
had
front
it
of me.
both ways.
So they had it both ways.
Okay, good to know. Last call for public comments on the proposed underlying zoning recommendation. All right, hearing them, we'll close the public hearing at 7:32. I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we zone a PUD with underlying I2.
So it'll say I2 dash
Yes.
PUD.
I'll second it.
Right, we'll second it. Justin seconded it. Okay. Discussion. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. And another one right here. Okay. All right, number 8, rezone a parcel of property by adding the underlying zoning of general business district, which would be in B2, to the existing PUD zoning at 606 First Street Southeast, which the Little Falls Convention?
Call this one to order.
Yeah, I did. I said 7:32. I'm sorry. Sorry. The Little Falls Convention and Visitors Bureau. Staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All right, we're over on southeast Little Falls. It's the old Rosenmeyer House. It's also the Little Falls Visitor and Convention Bureau. So we're in this neck of the woods right there. In our comprehensive plan, it's a mixed-use district, which is a combination of residential / business uses. So recommend to go to the B2 with it. And we did have a noon HPC meeting today, and what's her name?
Chris Fonberg?
Chris said she was going to email me. I bet if I go check my emails, there's an email in from her. She wants the B2.
So
But
she's
I don't have.
supporting the.
Yes, but I
the
told her to put it in
recommendation.
writing, so I bet she emailed it to me if I went and checked the computer, but I don't have that in front of us right
What's
now.
her title?
She's
CVB Director, I believe.
Thank you.
Visitor Convention and Visitors Bureau Director.
Okay, that, any other correspondence about that? Okay. All right, comments from the public on the proposed B2 zone? Comments? Going 3 times? Comments? Okay, we will close the public hearing at 7.
Hang on.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to not acknowledge you, Robin.
I'm curious as to why a business label for a city-owned property, whether it's this one or Linden Hills. Because this is technically owned by the city, correct?
Yes.
And Linden Hills is technically owned by the city, correct?
Yes.
Okay, my concern is for possible development in the future. It was a while back, and I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to this because I was working full-time and I was also doing foster care. But I remember reading something about that Linden Hills and the Musser home might be turned over and made into a convention center or something to that effect. And this is in my neck of the woods, and I'm concerned about larger signage. I'm concerned that the signage in a B2 district does not have to be historical to match the lovely exterior of those homes and that property. Because see, historic HPC group revised the rules. There is no more distinction of historic preservation commission in downtown. It's all B2, so they can put whatever banners or whatever in that area. It just has to fit the size of the lot and the building. That's why the Support the Troops banner can be up again, because it's now legal, because banners are acceptable in a historic district where they weren't before. So my concern about rezoning this business is that for residents that live in the close proximity, because I'm within 3 blocks of there, I don't want to see those lovely homes that were donated to the city turned over to private, some kind of private organization. And that would be my objection to rezoning this. For instance, the hospital, which sits next to my property and to the backside of my property, that's zone R3, correct? Is that right, Jerry? It's R3?
Yes, it is.
So that's for multiple use of people staying there. Why would that not be a more appropriate fit for these 2 properties?
They're both expected to be run as businesses and break even. So to me, it's also has a business feature to it that makes it fit a B2. And your other comment is incorrect. The downtown is still historical and designated as historical property. Some is on the National Register, some is local,
Right.
and it still is. So
But
your
not
comment
for
is
signage. For signage, it's all B2.
it
There's
is.
no historic preservation
No, that's not what you
distinction
said, Robin. You said there is no designation in the downtown area.
Well,
And there
I'm
is.
sorry, I
And the
misstated that.
HPC recommends and it would work with the downtown historic districts by helping to pay for the signage if they make them historic. So that's still being
Right. I was referring
encouraged.
just to signage, that there is no, the rules have been reshaped to accommodate signage. And my concern, serious concern about this is that within the last year, a lovely home was destroyed, a historic home. And there's also been discussion of turning this property over to the Friends and letting them have it, do what they want with this property. And opening this up to a B zoning would be the first step to that, folks. I just want to point that out. And I hope I'm not the only one that objects to that.
Thank you. Clarification, Jay. The lots 1 through 8, would that comprise more than a half acre, do you think?
I don't know the answer to that without looking up
Just
the legal
trying to-
descriptions.
yeah.
But
The findings of fact, I'll wait for any other comments and then I'll close the public hearing. Any other comments? Any other comments? I will close the public hearing at 7:39. just as a clarification, and Jerry touched on it, is that when you look at proposed zoning districts, you try to fit the current use and the surrounding area use, and it abuts the highway. And if you do not appropriately classify properties, you could put them in non-conformance, and then you're really tying your hands. What the staff did in their research was look at the current use and the surrounding properties and the general area, you know, it runs along the city, and came up with the B2 to most appropriately classify that piece of property.
I make a motion, we use it, make it a PUD with underlying zoning of business B2.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Just wait a minute.
I'm sorry, Harry.
I was just reading your public hearing procedure. It said we should keep it germane and concise. I'm just looking at this, not hearsay about if friends are gonna do this or that, but if it fits as a B2.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. All right, number 9, open public hearing at 7:41. And it's to rezone a parcel of property by adding underlying zoning of general business district B2 to the existing PUD zoning at 608 Highland Avenue, Linden Hill Historical Event Center. Staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, we're in southeast Little Falls. If you extended 6th Avenue straight to the river, the Linden Hill Historical Conference and Retreat Center is that portion of this area. So Mississippi River on the west side, the pond on the north side, First Street on the east side, 6th Avenue on the majority of the southerly side. Again, as a business, it's trying to make its own, and staff would recommend going with that B2 zoning for that property.
And you also pointed out in your findings of fact that it would need a conditional use anyway if there were changes.
Yeah, either one would, if you're going to change the PUD, you're going to have to go through a public hearing. And
Yeah.
yes.
Any correspondence regarding the?
No, but we do have some representatives here. So.
Okay, we will now open up to the public. Okay.
Hi, I'm Linda Burgraff, 12271 190th Avenue, and I'm the president of the Friends of Linden Hill. And we as the board would like it to become a B3, or B2, excuse me, B2. Not B3, forget it. Okay. And it would give us a little bit more flexibility in the signage, and just that we are trying to make it a business because we're trying to protect and preserve those homes, and to do that we need money. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'm Sister Julian Durkis, and I live at 613 3rd Street, but we have a home that is on 66 6th Avenue, and I just want to say that we do not see the problem to be changed to a B2.
Thank you.
My name?
Yes.
Sister Julian Durkis.
Thank you. Any other comments? In staff doing their research, it is used as a conference, retreat, educational center, and that falls under the business uses. Any other comments? Going second time. Any other comments? Any other comments? All right, we'll close the public hearing at 7:44. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we make it a PUD with underlying B2.
Second?
Second.
Jeremy? Discussion?
Jerry, I was listening to Ms. Hensel. A B2, we couldn't operate that as a convention, a site like it is right now if it were an R2?
No.
Okay, so in order to continue the present use of it, it would definitely have to be a B2.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Number 10. Request to rezone parcels of property by adding underlying zoning of 1 and 2 family residential district to 706 Highland Avenue, which is the Kurt property.
Again, we're in the southeast part of Little Falls. Now we're going to be south of 6th Avenue, southeast extended. So Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad would be on the south and westerly Mississippi River. Highland Avenue goes through here, but so it's this parcel right there is what we're talking about. So it's the address is 706 Highland, but it is owned by people out of the Twin Cities. And it has a number of utility lines going across it, sanitary sewer lines, storm sewers. Part of it's a wetland, but again, our comments from a month ago is that it does not have direct access to any main highway, and this is an R2 all the way along the easterly side. So the recommendation was to go with an R2 as the underlying zoning.
And as a clarification, Jerry, the reason you're suggesting or recommending the PUD is that there's also a home, so there's multiple uses, primary
Yes.
uses on the property.
You have an existing
so you
home
needed
on that property.
flexibility. Okay, any correspondence on that
No,
recommendation?
Jay, I thought he was going to be here. The owner of the property did call us, but I have no written correspondence. Jay is just a developer who works for the owner. Wanted it as a B2, was his comment. But again,
It doesn't fit with
it doesn't fit with our comprehensive plan, and this is all adjoining the residential district and has no direct access. So our comprehensive plan would put this as a residential underlying zoning.
And it does need to comport with the comp plan. Okay, open up to the public. Any comments on that recommendation?
My name is Mary Hirsch. I live at 86 Highland Avenue, which is adjacent to this property. It's the lower out behind my home. A couple of things I don't understand. There's a dashed line coming from a small parcel that's not included.
That's in this one.
That's number 11.
That's the lift station.
It is?
Yeah, the city.
And so
that'll be the next.
That'll be the next one.
Okay.
But prior to this current owner, when the Gertz family was down there, the city needed a lift station. So the city bought a little piece of land down there for a lift station that gets all the sewage to the main plant.
Okay.
It goes by your.
Clarify that.
It goes by your place.
As far as the designation of
Yeah.
R2, I would like to know the difference between an R1 and an R2. What is the?
Both R1 and R2 are 1 and 2 family. Structures are allowed. And R3 is multiple family, so 3 or more units in a house, in a property. But as an R1 or an R2, it's 1 or 2 family. The difference is an R1 would have a minimum lot size of 12,000 square feet, and an R2, your minimum lot size would be 9,000 square feet. In an R1, you would have to stay 10 feet away from the interior lot lines. And in an R2, you can build within 5 feet. So you can put more houses per block in an R2 than you can in an R1. Slightly smaller lots, slightly closer together.
And more comparable to the existing lots
Yeah.
just on the southeast side.
Maybe.
Maybe. Some of those lots are a little bit bigger, some are a little bit smaller.
That's true. Like an Ernie, who
Yeah.
ran the town too.
Okay, you answered my questions, thank you.
Were you in favor or not, or just had questions, just for clarification, or?
I don't think it's a very good building area, just because of the river back and because of the wastewater treatment plant on the other side.
So you wouldn't want businesses in there, but you'd rather have businesses, okay? So residential
is the best destination.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on the recommendation? Any other comments on the recommendation? Any other comments on the recommendation? Going once, twice? Okay, we'll close the public hearing at 7:50. Okay, I'll entertain a motion. That you're recommending an R2 PUD?
I'll second.
Keith, second?
Yep.
Discussion?
Are we going PUD on there?
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. It is an existing PUD, we just need an underlying zoning zone.
Just underline.
Jerry, if somebody would buy that whole property, the house on the east side, because the city owns that property in between, they couldn't put a garage on the west side of it, could they? Because it's divided?
The city has an easement across there, we don't
Just an
own it,
easement.
it's just an easement for our, there's two big sanitary sewer lanes that go across on that little dotted line that you see on your map.
So you could build on top of that?
No, you couldn't build on it, you'd have to stay off of it with
But
any
you could own
structures.
it.
But you could own it and have a
Okay.
parking lot on it, or a garden, or other amenities. But you
But
could
nothing, not a structure.
Not a permanent structure.
Okay.
Any other questions? Any other discussion? Okay, call for the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Now, last public hearing, item 11. We'll open the public hearing at 7:52. And the request is to rezone a parcel of property by adding underlying zoning of 1 and 2 family residential district, or an R2, to the existing PUD zoning at 616 Highland Avenue. And that's the Little Falls lift station that we've just pointed out on the map. And being that it's under separate ownership, and so we're treating this as a separate public hearing. Staff.
Okay. Doug and Bradley did all the research. It's just that they don't want to.
They don't want to toot their own horns?
When you're.
Well, congratulations, I mean, yes, a lot of hard work.
Yes, thank you. When the Gertz property was rezoned to a PUD, the legal description did not include the lift station. However, the lift station is only a 10 by 10 square in that larger parcel of property. So it was never rezoned PUD, it still remains as an R2. So we really don't need to do anything with it because it is not a PUD.
Okay, so you're clarifying that,
Yes.
all right, so this is null and void.
Correct.
Okay,
On this
so we'll
one-
just make that clear for the public hearing sake. Okay,
During the research, like I said, again, we're trying to,
okay, good enough, this is a good thing.
we found out that it was exempted from that PUD, therefore it still is an R2.
Right,
And does
okay.
not need to be
And doesn't
rezoned.
have a PUD, it just needs to be corrected on that.
Correct.
Okay.
It needs to be corrected on the map.
Okay. All righty. Any correspondence or anything? Any question?
R2,
Just
what
wait.
it was.
It is R2, we ain't gonna do nothing with it.
No, but we do, I mean, we had a
Right.
public hearing, so we just need to explain that for the minutes. For the record. That a public hearing on item 11 is not needed because there didn't need to be a change because it wasn't a PUD in the first place. So we will just reflect that in the minutes here. Okay, so we can close the public hearing, 7:54, and take no action. We'll just make that correction noted. Does anybody need a body break, or should we keep going?
Well, I think it'll be done in short order. I hope.
Your date, okay. We are now on to new business. And Terry, why don't you take the reins on that one and explain what you're going to be doing?
We talked about this, I believe, last time a little bit, in that when you look at the comprehensive plan and where the soccer field is, and after meeting with the school district representatives, we would go with an R1C as, and so we're talking this area right here. Soccer fields are just south of Pine Avenue.